Okay, today I'm going to show you how to lace an XT500 front wheel. This sort of will help you with pretty much any of those bikes from that era, TT500, TT600, XT500, XT600, whatever you have, especially if it's a drum brake hub like this. You can use this technique for pretty much any of those bikes. And for any bike, like I said, that has a drum brake hub, so RTs, anything like that. The things you're going to need to just lace the wheel are, we use a block like this, and you'll see in the video why we use a block like this. It helps get all of the spokes into the hub before you start lacing the wheel. Because if you just put one side in, when you're putting the other side in, they get in the way, and you have to then unscrew this one, get it out the way, put the other one in. So it's important to get all of the spokes into the hub before you even start lacing the rim. Now, before you see that, I'm going to show you what to do if this is your original wheel, before you strip it. So before you've had the parts refurbed or replaced the rim or replaced the spokes or whatever you're doing. Say you've just received your wheel, or you've just taken your wheel off the bike. It's extremely important. So assume that this wheel was tight, because I've just built it, but I'm going to show you what to do before you strip it. So assume that it's tight and it's sitting like this. Some tools you're going to need are a straight edge and a vernier. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm measuring the wheel offset so that when we're rebuilding the wheel, we put it in the correct position. Now, some people will say you don't need to measure the offset, because if you tension the spokes perfectly, it's just going to be in the right position. But from our experience, it's best to just measure the offset and then rebuild the wheel exactly in that position. So what I'm referring to with the offset, I'm going to have to replace this camera somewhere else. This is what I'm referring to. This distance between the drum brake face and the edge of the rim. Okay, you're going to measure this distance here and measure it in multiple places. Now remember, just assume that this wheel is tight and it's just come off your bike. And you're going to measure the offset in all of those locations, and then look at your vernier scale and take note of what it is. In the case of this wheel, before I stripped it, we measured front offset 17 mils. And this 56 in brackets is just something we've learned over time, is to also measure the thickness of the rim, because some people will replace their front rim, and sometimes the rims have a slightly different diameter, different width, and if the width of the rim changes, the offset has to be adjusted. So we just measure, even if we're reusing the customer's rim, we measure the rim width, and it's also for our data. So if ever I'm rebuilding an XT500 wheel and a guy brings me and it's got an odd rim on it that's wider than normal, I can measure the rim and go, this rim is 65 mils. So, and then make the offset adjustment according to that. So once you've measured the wheel offset, you're going to write it down like I've done here. I've written 17 mils, excuse my scribbles. 17 mil front offset and a 56 mil wide rim. It's important for me to mention, I think, that I'm pretty much self-taught, and there might be several different ways to build these wheels. I did obviously learn a little bit from online videos and things, but we've been doing this since 2011. So built a lot of wheels over that time. So while there may be multiple ways to do it, this is the way we do it, and we found success with this way. So yeah, feel free to follow along. So yeah, let's get started. The XT500 has 4 different spoke lengths. So immediately that might feel overwhelming, trying to figure out which spoke goes where. So to simplify it, let's first look at the hub. Now you'll notice that the hub has 2 different sides, this being the smaller side and this being the bigger side. This is what's called a single-sided hub. If this hub was the same side on the plain side, so this is the drum side, that's the plain side, it would be called a double-sided hub. Now when you have a single-sided hub, that makes it easier to determine which spoke goes where, because this side is closer to the rim, so it's going to be a shorter spoke. This side is a smaller circle, it's further away from the rim, you're going to need a longer spoke. So that's going to immediately split the spokes into two. And that's what I've done, well, into four, but two for now. This is the longer spoke, these two, and these are the shorter spokes. Now, with the shorter spokes, you're going to notice one has a bigger bend and a longer bend and a greater angle, and this one has less of a bend. So the reason for that is on this hub you have what's called inner and outer spokes. The outer spoke, and you can identify it on these hubs, even after they've been refurbed, you can see these little indentations. So there, it's going to be every second hole there. Now that's from the spoke coming through and over and resting on the hub. And this is why it's an outer spoke, and that's why it has a bigger bend, because it needs to get up and over this lip. So immediately when you see these spokes with the 90-degree bend, you know that that's my outer spoke. The other spoke, the inner, has less of a bend, and it's called an inner spoke because it comes through the inside of the hub like that, and that's why it has less of a bend. If you can imagine this, you want the spoke going to the center of the rim, which is like there. So that's the reason for the bend. Let's put that down. So now when we're comparing, let's look at the plain side quickly. You'll notice on this plain side, it also has an inner and outer spoke, but these spokes, the outer spokes don't come through and over. They all go through the inside, but this hole is on the outer edge of the circle. So we call that the outer spoke on the plain side, and we call this the inner spoke. Just with the same sort of theory as the drum side, this hole is further away from the rim, which is obviously going to be, well, the rim is all around, but this hole is further away from the rim, so it needs a longer spoke. This hole is closer to the rim, it needs a shorter spoke. So with the plain side spokes, which are all of these, and then just to show you the difference in length, so that's the difference in length between the drum side and the plain side right there. Okay, so with the plain side, we've got two lengths, and they are actually pretty close. I don't know if I'm going to even be able to show you. But you can see there, the one on the left is slightly longer. Wait, let's just fix that. There. The one on the left is ever so slightly longer. And again, that's because it travels a slightly longer distance. So right there, we've identified, let me just make sure I don't mix these up. There, you can see that's flat, and the one on the left is longer. So my longer spoke's going there. So now we've got our 4 different spoke lengths sorted. Okay, so now that we've identified the spokes into their 4 different piles, we are going to be figuring out which spoke goes where. And we do that by looking for these little indentations in the hub from this outer spoke that comes up and through the hub and presses on the hub. And you're going to notice these little patterns. There's the outer, you skip one, here's the next outer, and you can see the little mark. Skip one, here's the next outer, you can see the little mark. I don't know if you can see that there. So that helps us identify which is the outer and which is the inner spoke. So that's going to be our outer spoke, which lies over and pushes on the hub. And then these two are going to be inners. So it goes outer, inner, outer, inner, outer, inner. So we put that down. We're going to put the inners in first, because the outers, you can actually do the outers last, especially on the drum side. Generally, you can also put all the spokes in at once. We do recommend also doing that. But sometimes the spokes can get in the way of each other, and it can get a little bit difficult to manage. So the drum side outer spokes can actually be done last if you like. You might find that easier to do. So again, we've identified the outer spoke there. Here's my little indentation. And so that's going to be an inner, that's going to be an outer. So I'm going to just double check. Yeah, that's my inner, because that's the indentation from the outer spoke. And we're going to skip one, put all the inners in. Okay, now for the sake of the video, I am going to put all the spokes in. So that's the inners. Now we know from the indentation on the hub that the outers go in this direction, because obviously, who's to say if they can go like that? And like I said at the beginning, I think it is possible to build this wheel in multiple ways, but just for peace of mind and ease of building, take a photo of the wheel beforehand, look at how the wheel is set up, and go from there. So I'm going to get all these outers in now. And I like to hook it over the inner spoke because it keeps it sort of in the rough position of where it needs to be. That's proving a little tricky. There we go. So we use this little elevated block, and I've actually made a mistake. I normally have a, may seem a little bit crude, but it gets the job done. So I've got a hole in the block, and now this hub's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to fall off the block. I just haven't put it in yet. Okay, so there we go. And here's our last outer spoke going in. Okay, so now I've got these nice and set up. Okay, now it's important to double check your little hub marks to make sure that your spokes are still going the right way. So let's actually just quickly take a look at that. Okay, there's the outers are going this way. Okay, so this is my outer spoke here, the one I'm wiggling, and that goes in that direction. So we're going to put our block in, and we're going to move all the inners going this way and the outers going the other way. I need to move this box that's holding my camera. Okay, outer. So I'm moving all the outers to point this way, and all the inners are going to come in here against the hub. Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay, get those just tucked nicely. You want them out of the way because they can get in the way of the rim and scratch the rim and stuff. So we've got all of those out the way. Okay, now we're going to do what we call the plain side. Now, just like we showed at the beginning of the video, the one spoke is ever so slightly longer, and we know that that's going to be the inner spoke. So let's see if we can get this closer now. It looks good. I'm going to put the inner spokes in first. Now, I looked at a photo. Again, this is why I say it's important to photograph the wheel, because we didn't strip this wheel, but I know from previous XTs that this inner spoke goes in that direction. So I'm going to put it roughly in the right position right off the start. I'm going to get the rest of my long spokes. The same thing. So there it is. I like to just put it already in the right position like we said. Slide it in, get it up and over, and then resting on that spoke. This is why the block helps, because the spokes, the angle that the spokes go in, if you're just using a table, the spoke would hit the table. So we're going to get all these inners in. Up and over. Okay, that's the last inner spoke, and it's there. So you can see I've got this inner resting on this spoke and the next one resting on that one, so a pattern starts to emerge, and it's going to make the wheel a lot easier to lace. Okay, we're going to put the outers in now, and just like the inners were going sort of in an anti-clockwise direction, these outers are going in a clockwise direction, and I'm just going to place it there in between the V of the other two spokes just for now. And we're going to go around and do all of these. Place it in the V. Okay, so new camera angle. Hopefully not in the way. Okay, now we've got this rim, and make sure your spoke nipples are, hopefully YouTube doesn't shadow ban the video for saying nipple, but these are called nipples. Please YouTube, don't restrict this video. This is my first video, so yeah, I'm hopeful. So, firstly, the rim. Glad I remembered. Because this is a single-sided hub, like I mentioned earlier in the video, the rim can only actually be placed in one rotation, I guess you could say. It can't go both ways. And I'll tell you how you tell. When you look at these holes, you'll notice that one set of the holes, this one, is a lot closer to the edge of the rim. This one is close. This one is not close. You can see there's a little bit of the dimple that you can see. This one's close. This one's not close, and it alternates like that. This side that's closer to the edge of the rim is your big side of the hub. So in this case, the drum side. Drum side, plane side, drum side, plane side, and it just alternates like that around the rim. So knowing that this is the drum side, you can see this hole is pointing slightly up. This one's going down, that one's going up, that one's going down. That's because it alternates. One goes to the drum side, one goes to the plane side. So we know this is the drum side. We can see the drum side is on the bottom. So this, I need to flip this over. So now you will see that the drum side spoke is on the bottom. Okay, that's the top, that's the bottom, drum side, plane side, drum side. Okay, so that's how this rim is going to go, with the drum side at the bottom. Now, because we've already got these roughly in the correct position, we're going to pick up the spoke and you're going to look for the hole. There's only really one hole that it can go to. Let me figure out the best way to show you this. It can only go in that hole because the hole is pointing in that direction. And I'm hoping you can see this. Now these spokes are not ideal because they're second hand. And the pattern that you're going to use is pretty much skip 3. So 1, 2, 3, that's your next hole. That takes the next spoke. But actually, you know what? I'm going to do the inners first. I'm going to do the inners. No. We're going to do the outers. That's correct. Okay, so outer spoke in. Next one, here it is. You're going to skip 3. 1, 2, 3. So we call that every 4th spoke. Now, it's a little bit difficult to do on your own because you have to hold the rim. You have to brace it against your stomach. But once you've got, a few in, it can kind of just rest. So here's the next one. Skip 3, 4th hole. I'm hoping you can see that. I don't even know if it's in camera. So let's rotate this a little bit. It's important to keep the hub and the spoke sort of in the same orientation. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Where's my spoke gone? Here? That's going to go in there. It's easy as that. Screw it in. Next one. There it is. There it is. Okay, now rotate, hold the hub. Keep rotating so you're working sort of close to yourself. Here. Next one. There it is. Okay, here we go. There it is. Skip 3, 1, 2, 3. There's the hole. One, two, three. Okay, you might find this more difficult to do on your own if you've never done it, but there, I'm not holding the rim anymore, and it's just sitting. Now you may notice that this rim can actually rotate at the moment, and we don't want it to do that. And the way we stop it is by grabbing one of the inners and putting it in. And that's going to hold the rim in its orientation a little bit better. Okay, take a break because it a little bit tough on the back holding it, and let's just check. It looks like I got everything in the form. So let's keep going. Pick the rim up. Again, I'm bracing it against my stomach, and we're going to get the next inner spoke, and you can see it just lines up perfectly. It's just dying to go into that hole, and we will oblige it. Here's the next one. This is probably the hardest part of building the wheel. Just because it's a little strenuous on the back, and as long as you've got the spokes sort of already set up in their right position like I showed you, then it's a lot quicker to build, and that's why it's good to get all of the spokes in the wheel in the hub before you start. Okay, you can see the rim's being held a lot better now. You can almost let go and just do it like this. On our nipple. You know, these spokes are used, which, you know, it's not our favorite thing using second-hand spokes because I think this thread is damaged. It doesn't want to go on. Okay, let's just leave that one for now. Let's just do the next one. Hopefully we don't have any more of those. That's going on nicely. That's going on nicely. So right now it's just the one that's a problem. Okay, that is all of the plain side spokes done, except for this one, which appears to have a stripped thread, although that's going on nicely. Let's try that again. Yeah, okay, it's going on now. Okay, sometimes you can flip the wheel over when you were going to switch over to the drum side, but because we've got the spokes already in the right position, I mean, you don't really need to. And you'll see that the spokes, they just want to go to their home. Look at that. There's our first one on the drum side. It's just dying to go into that hole, and we will help him on his way. Here's the next one. So if you have this problem where you need to avoid scratching the rim, the spoke is a little bit out of place, come to the other side of the rim and you can manipulate it. So look, now it wants to go in. I'm holding it a bit. You know, there's a whole bunch of different orientations it can be in, because the wheel's not being held together perfectly yet. So you can still manipulate it, because whatever you do on that side, there's an opposite reaction on the other side, so to speak. So keep that in mind. All right, that's in. A few more of these inners to do. Okay, that's all of the inners on the drum side done. Now you're going to see it's the same story with these outers. I mean, they're just ready to go into their hole. And let's put them in. See, I'm barely even holding the rim anymore. And obviously we've got 90% of the spokes in, so the wheel is being held. The right tools makes life easy, that's for sure. When I say tools, I mean this block, obviously. Okay. Alright, there it is, the last one going in. Okay, now obviously the wheel is still loose because there's a lot of, spokes are not tensioned yet, but that is your successfully laced XT500 wheel.